Hello students, as you know that we have been learning very interesting unit, that is unit 3 from your paper 6th computational botany, that is collection and representation of data. From this collection and representation of data, today we are going to get idea about or learn about how the data is represented by using scatter diagram, frequency polygon and frequency curve. So we know that these methodologies are there that can be used just to represent the huge data or just to draw inferences from that one, and that inferences help just to improve the ideas. Now from that one, as I have said to you, first most important, that is a scatter diagram. Students, scatter diagram graph pairs of a numerical data with one variable on each axis to look for a relationship between them. So here in case of the scatter diagram, we should have in our hand the two variables. One we have to sketch on, that is one axis, another on another axis, and if the variables are correlated, the points whatever we have drawn on the graph, that will fall along the line or curve. So definitely you might have understood that scatter diagram is used to finding the correlation between the two variables. Which are those variables? What things are there? When we will see exact scatter diagram, at that time we will understand very easily. But only you will have to keep in mind, in case of the scatter diagram, two variables are required, and when we plot a graph, scatter diagram, we have to say that at that time we will be able to find out the correlation between two variables. Again, this diagram shows the closeliness of the two variables or relation. Either there is a positive relation, negative relation, or there is no inner relation in between two variables. After determining the correlation between the variables, one can predict the behavior of the other variable, isn't it? In the sense, out of that two variables, the behavior of one variable is known to us, that is nothing but the independent variable, and the variable we have to predict on the basis of an independent variable, that is known as a dependent variable, isn't it? Now, what is the exact need or necessity of a scatter diagram? So need, when there is a pair of a numerical data is there is a scatter diagram need. When dependent variable may have multiple values for each values of the independent variable. When trying to identify the potential root causes of the problem, we have to use the scatter diagram. Friends, one example I would like to put forth about you before getting idea about this scatter diagram, a representation of a collected data. Friends, we know that we are having the two variables, that is nothing but the amount of fertilizer added in the farm or added per acre, isn't it? And the yield, we have to correlate that variable with the production of, with the yield of that area. Suppose we have started to add a 500 kilogram of a vermicompost into the jowar field. Another field we are having an acre. In that one we have added 1,000 gram. Third field we are having, in that one we have added 1,500. Like that one, 10 fields are there. 10 acre plot of jowar is there. In first acre we have added 500 gram, and in another 1000, in another 1500, like that one we have increased the addition of amount of a decomposed fertilizer into the jowar plant, and we have to find out increase in the amount of yield finally. So there we have to compare all these things. So root cause, potential, all sort of the things are there when testing for the autocorrelation before constructing a control chart. Now friends, as I have said to you, two axes are there. This one is a y-axis, another this one is a x-axis. On x-axis there is a length of a fish in centimeters. Suppose we can convert this data into a length of a moringa or drumsticks, isn't it? And another on y-axis there is a weight of that moringa pod or drumstick is there. But with the help of this scatter diagram we will be able to understand that there is a positive relation in between length. As the length of moringa drumstick increases, weight also increases, and because of that one here we have got idea. So we can say that there is a positive correlation in between these two variables. First variable, that is of a length of the moringa or moringa pod or drumstick, and weight of that one, isn't it? So these two variables, one of these is a length in centimeter of that drumstick or moringa pod, and here weight is there. So you might have understood that how the scatter diagram is going to help or used to finding the correlation in between the two variables. Here we have found out the correlation, that is there is a positive correlation, that is there is a positive correlation, means as the length of drumstick increases the weight also increases, isn't it? Now what are the limitations of this scatter diagram? So first limitation is that scatter diagram is unable to give you the exact extent of correlation. Keep in mind, exact extent of correlation is not possible with the help of a scatter diagram. In the sense, there is a positive correlation, we cannot write exact one of the figure 88% there is a positive correlation, 98%. So we cannot write that figures. Only we say, so the exact extent not possible. Scatter diagram does not show the quantitative measures. As I have said to you, we cannot quantitatively find out the relation between the two variables. It is only shows the quantitative expression of the quantitative change, isn't it? It does not show relations more than two variables. Suppose we are having in our hand, there are the three variables. Example, again same I have put about you. Suppose we have added fertilizer, that is a one variable, and we have correlated with the another variable, that is yield of the jowar. But here suppose we want to consider the size of or area of a jowar plant, effect of increase in the amount of vermicompost or biofertilizer on the area of leaf of jowar, and yield. So three variables, that three variables we cannot consider here with the help of scatter diagram, just to correlate the relationship between these, among these three variables. Only two variables we can take here. So that is one of the, again, drawback, one of the limitation, one of the demerit of the scatter diagram. Now some advantages are also there of scatter diagram. So advantages also we have to keep in mind. Merits of this scatter diagram we have to keep in mind, which is used to represent the data. So it shows the relation between two variables. This is the advantage. Again, this method to show a non-linear pattern also there. The range of data flow, that is a maximum and minimum value, will be able to find out. Again, most important thing is that in case of advantage or merit, or we have to say that positive point of scatter diagram, is that value can be easily determined. Plotting the diagram is relatively simple. So simplest method we can say that. Now, friends, another graphical representation of data we have to learn, that is the frequency polygon. What is this frequency polygon? Actually, in this graph, the midpoint of the class interval plotted against the frequency, and these plotted points joined together by straight line. Keep in mind, there is a difference in case of frequency polygon and frequency curve. Here, the midpoints we have to join with the straight lines. Am I right? We have to join with the straight lines. Again, it can also be obtained by connecting the midpoints of the tops of the rectangles in the diagram, as we have seen in case of bar diagram, or in case of histogram, we have raised the bars or rectangles are there, but middle point of that one we have to take from the top of the each bar, and that we have to join with the straight lines. It is considered as a variation of a histogram where instead of erecting rectangles over the intervals, midpoints are used to represent the class intervals, and successive points are joined with the straight line. Actually, what is this? Once you will see the sketch, you will come to know that. Here, you will be able to see that. Here, frequency polygon of a yield of a paddy plant is there. Frequency polygon of a yield of a paddy plant is there. Here, the midpoint of the class intervals on x-axis and frequency we have plotted on the y-axis. So here we can find actually this is the midpoint of a 1, 2nd, 3rd, 5th. So here suppose we raise such a type of a structures, and out of that structure midpoint is considered here. Midpoint, this one, isn't it? Midpoints are considered here, and each and every midpoint is joined with the straight line, isn't it? Joined with the straight line. So actually this is a histogram, but we have not used here or erected here or constructed here the bars of the and middle point of the class intervals have been considered here. The middle class midpoint of each and every bar is joined with the straight line only, isn't it? Now, comparison of histogram and frequency, isn't it? Comparison of a, so as we have seen some frequency polygon, histogram and frequency polygon. Here we have to write word the comparison of histogram and frequency polygon. The advantage of histogram for the frequency polygon are, which are the advantage of histogram? Each individual is represented by rectangles which stands out clearly. The height of the rectangle represents the exact number of frequencies in the class. However, frequency polygon also have certain advantages over the histogram, isn't it? First one, it is a simpler and has a few lines, and this program, this diagram it can be constructed more clearly than the histogram. It enables to understand the pattern of data more clearly than the histograms. It can be used to compare the two frequency distributions. So these are the advantages of each and every data representative method over the another method. So which is suitable, that we have to use. Here histogram and frequency polygon we will be able to see here with the help of this diagram. Now frequency curve, another method. When the two frequency is a large and the class intervals are narrow, the frequency polygon or histogram will approach more and more towards the form of a smooth curve. And such a smooth curve is called as a frequency curve. The frequency curve is also called as a smoothed frequency polygon. Students, keep in mind, frequency curve and frequency polygon having some similarities. Here the frequency curve is also called as smooth frequency, that is a frequency polygon actually, but smooth curve having, not straight line joined in between the two midpoints, but that is joined by the smooth curve. In this, the total area under the curve is approximately equal to area under the original histogram or polygon. Now this is a frequency polygon curve for the yield of a paddy. Here it is not a straight line in between the two, but it is a smooth one. So it is actually frequency polygon, but it is known as a frequency curve because smooth is there. So that differences you have to keep in mind. With this, my friends, I would like to say to you, we have today studied the methodology, graphical methodology of representation of a data. In that one, scatter diagram, again frequency polygon, and again frequency curves. So these things we'll have to rewrite the things, sketch the diagrams and label the diagrams. Try to understand actually what the diagram wants to tell to you and which type of information is to be involved into that one. And when we have to use that one, as we have seen in case of the scatter diagram, two variables are required, and from that two variable we can find out the exact correlation. Suppose three variables are there, we cannot use the scatter diagram there. Again, another drawback of that scatter diagram we have learned, we cannot find out the exact extent of correlation in between two, we have to say that the variables. So this type of a, we have to say that with the help of this, I think I would like to say to my friends, we have learned the collection and representation of data, isn't it? Most important thing is that in case of the data, in case of collection of data and representation, why do we have to represent by using such a type of a methodology? Which type of methodology we have to use for the representation of data, that we have learned. And accordingly, whenever data is available to you, that data we have to convert or into graphs or produce or represent in graphical form to the fellows, isn't it? Now, once again, I would like to say to you, friends, you will have to, students, you will have to prepare your own notes, isn't it? Try to learn about these things. Again, going through our textbook, and most probably you have to depend on the reference books so as to improve your knowledge, and that will help you actually reach up to the target. That is nothing but to understand concept and means as I used to say that always you will have to keep in your mind, or always you will have to ask the questions to each and everything. Why to use this methodology? Why not go for another methodology? Suppose that method having some advantages or disadvantages, and that things always you will have to think on that one. Remember the things that will help you to find out, to get it clear the concept. For that one you have to go for YouTube's. Many presentations are there on the YouTube. That also you have to hear, see, sketch the diagrams. So with this, today we are going to switch or complete this topic, Unit 3, and from next time we are going to switch on the next unit, that is unit number 4. Thank you.